Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Nina Finigan tōku ingoa. Kia ora everyone, I'm Nina Finigan. I'm the Curator Manuscripts here at Tamaki Pāngehira, Auckland Museum, and the Curator of Love and Loss, the museum's most recent temporary exhibition. Love and Loss opened in July this year, about a month before lockdown began here in Auckland, and this talk was supposed to be in person in the gallery. Unfortunately, we've had to delay that, but I'm very happy to have the opportunity to speak to you regardless, and hopefully we'll get back in the gallery soon. For this session, I'm going to talk to you about the development of the exhibition. Now, when an exhibition opens to the public, everything should appear quite seamless. The objects, interpretation, design, lighting, all coming together to form a cohesive experience as you come through the gallery. All those growing pains, both joyful and challenging, that mark the development of an exhibition should be invisible to you all. But these things are what makes the journey really interesting for us. So I wanted to share just a few of those things with you today. The best place to start is probably at the beginning. So why do an exhibition about love and loss? Letters mingle souls, wrote poet John Donne in the 17th century. To me, these words encapsulate what's at the heart of this exhibition and why I wanted to do a show about love, longing and loss in the first place. Specifically, I wanted to explore our deep human need to communicate these feelings to and with each other through words on paper or screen, and how these two-dimensional documents hold our emotional lives. In my role at Auckland Museum, I work with archives, manuscripts, written documents like letters and diaries. Our collections are vast, the manuscript collection consisting of an estimated 3 million documents at least. These collections encompass many things, however, they were not collected for their emotional content. For the most part, they were collected because they say something interesting, perhaps about war or conflict, or tell us something about the history of Auckland or Aotearoa. These are the grand narratives that make up our understanding of history and help us to interpret and understand the past. Documentary heritage and manuscripts help reveal these narratives, but they can reveal so much more than that too. Emotion is often left out of the study of history. History, as it is traditionally understood, is rational, objective, something to be looked at from a distance. But we know that this is a bit of an oxymoron. Those remnants of material culture that we study and use were, after all, created by people with their own unique subjectivities, and we, as historians and curators, bring our own subjectivity to bear upon them, as does anyone who comes through our museum and views our exhibitions or collections. Stripping emotion from history, removing those things that are fundamental to the human experience, those things that actually underpin those big narratives, that drive migration, conflict, the creation of community, and so much more, to me seems nonsensical and incredibly limiting. And in fact, what draws me to the collections I work with is this very thing, their emotional content, their deep humanity. When I walk through our collection stores, I don't see an accumulation of data or units of information or only evidence of historical events. I see people and their lives, their loves, their losses, their relationships, those things that so often motivate us to put pen to paper or finger to key in the first place. So I wanted to do an exhibition focused on this, that centered emotion and that repositioned these documents, often viewed as too common and ubiquitous to be precious, as sacred. Their ubiquity is in fact part of their beauty. Although each is entirely unique, this story, this collective story, belongs to all of us and reveals something beautiful and profound about what it means to be human. It's worth mentioning that this is actually the first exhibition we've had at Auckland Museum solely based on manuscript material. Often these collections are used as supporting evidence or background research material. A quote might be pulled here and there for an exhibition, but it's not often, or actually ever, at Auckland Museum that they've been the entire focus of an exhibition. There are many reasons for this, but one is that they are hard to interpret from a display perspective. The meaning and significance of these objects is not always immediately obvious, and the gold is often buried in pages and pages of text. If that text is cursive or handwritten, then for many people it is totally indecipherable. We knew from the beginning that we didn't want this to be an exhibition just of letters and cases. No shade to those kinds of exhibitions, but we wanted this to be a dynamic space and to have it reflect the experience of receiving a letter. Anyone who has received a love letter, for example, knows that this is not an intellectual exercise. Instead, perhaps your cheeks flush, perhaps your heart races, perhaps you even shed a tear. It's an embodied experience, and we wanted that to be reflected in the exhibition through design, through sound, and through video. There are 26 different stories in the exhibition, so I don't have time to talk with you about all of them, but I thought I'd talk you through a couple of examples of how we tried to achieve this. Firstly, I want to talk about the love story of Richard Tukino Grace and Alice Crump. In 1915, Richard went to Edinburgh to study medicine. Not long after arriving, he joined the 16th Royal Scots Battalion and thus entered the war. His sweetheart Alice Crump was back home in New Zealand. They had fallen in love as teenagers and had a kind of unofficial engagement when Dick left. A few years ago, Alice's granddaughter donated Alice's collection of letters to the museum, written to her from Dick over the 4 or so years he was active in the war. In these letters, Dick writes to Alice of his experiences as he moves across the war-torn landscape of the Western Front. But more than just observational communications, they are love letters. Dick writes vividly, expressively, and lovingly to Alice. He longs for her and for home. In his letters, he frequently imagines her, conjuring all the comforting familiarities of home. In one letter, he writes, "I am always wondering how you are and where you would be in that home I know so well. Where I seem to see you most is in the music room playing or writing to me. I can see you at the piano practicing hard away at your pieces, and then about lunchtime getting the things ready for lunch in the dining room. I would like to picture you sitting at the fire in the drawing room with the light shining on your hair and myself sitting beside you." In the act of writing, Dick finds reprieve from the desolation of war. He imagines their life together, what it will be like when they're reunited, a reality only possible in that moment on the pages of his letters. Within this two-dimensional world, the space between them falls away, and unburdened by geographical separation, the two can be together. To me, this is a kind of magic. Now, this collection consists of nearly 30 letters. Some of those letters are 50 pages long, so we had to try to condense their story, complicated and decades in length, to a single display. We decided to do this with a combination of animation and sound. As well as being a beautiful writer, Dick was also an artist. Included in the collection we now have at the museum is his sketchbook, in which he documented the people and landscapes he encountered during his wartime experience. These sketches are full of life. Some are humorous, some are tragic. They all offer a glimpse into Dick's world. They are dynamic. You can see the pencil work on the page, which gives this incredible immediacy to his work. You can imagine him sitting and sketching them. And because we have his letters, we also have his voice, what he was thinking in those moments. So we wanted to bring these two things together in the gallery, to literally sketch an outline of Dick and Alice's relationship. So we teamed up with the amazing Creature Post, a creative studio based in Auckland, and animated his sketchbook. These animations were then overlaid with excerpts from Dick's letters to Alice. We wanted to create vignettes that dove in and out of their story, and that brought to life the idea I mentioned earlier about letters having this ability to collapse time and space between people. In the gallery, we wanted to present this as if we are seeing Dick write and create in real time, the sketches on the wall moving and shifting as he thinks and writes about his life and his future with Alice. So I thought I'd just play you that first vignette from the animation so you can get a sense of what I mean.
Dearest Alice, it's just after morning sick parade, and I'm writing this letter sitting at our improvised table in the hospital. Alice, you're the only one I love or ever have loved, and I think I'm old enough now to love someone with all my heart. I've learnt a good bit since I left New Zealand, and I consider myself to be the luckiest beggar to have you love me. We're off next week. Thank goodness. 8 months of long waiting, and at last we're going.
So you can see from this first chapter, Dick has just entered the war. His letters are quite upbeat at this point. He's excited to be there, this is a big adventure, and he's hopeful about their future together, and the mood of the animation reflects this. Throughout the whole exhibition, we use this idea as weather as a design framework. Like, for example, when you're in love, or maybe when you look at your child, it feels like the sun is shining on your face. This is what we wanted this segment to feel like. This, of course, changes throughout the animation as the war progresses and Dick begins to lose hope about making it home to Alice. You can actually view this animation online on the museum's website, so I won't spoil it. You'll have to go and check it out to see how the story ends, or come and see us when the museum opens. Another important part of creating this dynamic feeling in the exhibition was to fill the space with people, not just their words on paper, but their embodied presence. In addition to the animation, early on we decided that we wanted to create something contemporary that brought movement and sound and life into the space. One of the challenges of working with historic collections is that the authors of the letters or diaries you work with, often, are no longer with us. When I started looking through the collection in preparation for this exhibition, I saw very quickly that there were many gaps in terms of the kinds of stories we wanted to tell, which is a normal part of the development of any exhibition. Our manuscript collection, although vast and incredible, is heavily slanted towards the 19th and early to mid-20th centuries. Because we wanted this to be an exhibition that seamlessly melded the historic and the contemporary, we decided to put out a public call for material, asking the public to submit their own love letters, texts or emails to be included in the exhibition. We received a really amazing response, and after a long process landed on the 13 you see in the exhibition, which sit alongside stories from the museum's collection. These loan documents brought incredible diversity in terms of the kinds of love and relationships we could present in the exhibition. And because they were submitted by living people, it meant that we could talk directly with the authors about what their documents mean to them, how that meaning might have changed over time, and what they felt when they first received or wrote them. And having access to these conversations, it was obvious to us that this was the dynamic element we needed in the space. Hearing directly from these people offered that real-life connection and an organic exploration of the power of these documents, told in their own words. So we selected 4 stories to focus on, 3 individuals and 1 couple, and we interviewed them. These interviews are focused on their love stories and their particular letter or document, but we didn't want the videos just to be talking heads. We wanted to show expressions, reactions, what people do with their hands when they're talking, to really show that embodied experience. These stories are each incredible. They range from secretly coded telegrams sent between New Zealand and Antarctica, to the first love letter a young man sends his new boyfriend after they first meet, to emails sent to a wife over the course of a year to her husband in prison, to 9 months worth of letters sent between a new couple, engaged after knowing each other for only 8 days. These videos really bring home that extraordinariness of the ubiquitous letter. To each of these people, they acted like a time portal, bringing them right back to a half-forgotten moment in their lives. I'm just going to play you an excerpt from one of these videos.
How do you hold love together when you're that far away? You couldn't ring up because people listen then. So I wrote him a letter, and I tried not to protect my heart in it. I just tried to tell the truth. Kevin, I love you.
So that's just a super short snippet from one of these videos. That was the amazing Welby Ings reading from a letter he wrote to Kevin in 1983. The two had met the night before in a nightclub in Auckland, and it was love at first sight. Welby lived in Taihape at the time, and so had to return there the day after they met. And upon returning, Welby asked himself that question: how do you hold love together when you're apart? And so he began writing. This is Welby's first letter to Kevin. It brims with hope and vulnerability, those freewheeling feelings of falling in love. At the time also, homosexual law reform was still 3 years away, and letters between male lovers were used as evidence against them. So for Welby, sending this letter was a bold act of love. And that question he asked himself is really central to the whole exhibition. How do these documents, these very normal, everyday things, help us do extraordinary things? And there's a quote I just adore from a book called Written in History, which became really important to me in the creation of this exhibition, and that is that these documents offer an antidote to the ephemerality of life. That these moments in our lives can come and go, but the words we put on paper or on screen offer a kind of eternal life to our former selves. These documents are like monuments to moments. They make those intangible feelings that so often lose their shape as time moves around us tangible and permanent. I think that's just such a beautiful way of thinking about these documents that can be so often overlooked, and I encourage you all to reflect on the place they might hold in your own lives, including all those Instagram DMs and text messages and emails. They are the documentary remnants of your life, and they are precious. So that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my ramblings, and I hope we can do it in person really soon. And although we've lost a couple of months of this exhibition thanks to lockdown, the entire thing is actually viewable online, including all those beautiful videos we created. And once we can get back into the museum, the exhibition is open until March 6th, so you'll have all summer to see it. So kia ora koutou katoa, ngā manaakitanga, take care of yourselves, and remember to dig out Granny's old love letters, or your own, because you never know what you might find. Kia ora.